Hi, my name is Mark Spede. I'm Director of Bands at Clemson University in South Carolina, and I'm going to be talking today about a subject very near and dear to my heart, time and the conductor. First, let me tell you a little bit about why I'm interested in this topic. As an undergraduate student at the University of Michigan, I was a percussion major and played in the ensembles of some of the most wonderful conductors you can imagine. H. Robert Reynolds, Jerry Junkin, Gustav Meyer, Carl St. Clair, Larry Radcliffe, among others. And playing in those ensembles sort of made me think about the relationship between time and the conductor. And by the way, I should say all those conductors had great time. That's not always the case, and I think it's a topic that's sometimes avoided in conducting pedagogy. But I think it's really important, and it's one of those things that you can develop and get better at. As you might imagine, the process of getting better time begins with an external source, such as a metronome. One of the first things that I did was to memorize a specific tempo. Mine happened to be quarter note equals 80, or 80 beats per minute. It doesn't have to be that one, but that's a really good one because you can find many other tempos from that particular one. For instance, if we have our metronome set to 80, if you play quarter note triplets against that, you'll get 120 beats per minute. And of course, if you have 120, you can easily get to 60 and various other ratios. So that's a really good one, I think, to start to memorize. Another step in the process of using a metronome is doing something like playing upbeats against the provided pulse. Our horn players have to do this all the time, particularly in marches, and they get really good at it because of practice. The horns can usually play them pretty well. Some of the other sections maybe not so much, and that's really just an indication of the fact that many sections don't do it all the time. But as a conductor, you should get really good at playing upbeats. So I'll set my metronome here at 144 and click or tap upbeats. And this should be fairly easy, and in fact you should be able to carry on a conversation, I think, while you're doing this. Multitasking. Okay, as the tempo increases, it gets a little more difficult. I'm setting the metronome on 176. And again, you can practice this until your tempo increases. It's just like any other form of practice. You have to do it frequently, I would say every day, until you get to the point. Now, just for demonstration purposes, I'll crank my metronome all the way up to 250 and show you that, even at 250 it can be done. So, practice, practice, practice. You can also invent all sorts of games to use the metronome in a fun way. Here's one that I used to work on back when I was in college, not so much anymore, but this develops your consistency of time just in isolation. So, you set your metronome on 120 to get a reference point. So we know there's 120 beats per minute. So, in the other hand, have a stopwatch that you're not going to look at. Once you get that tempo going, dot, 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 start, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, count all the way to, let's say, 60, which would be 30 seconds. When you reach 60, hit the stopwatch and see how close to an actual 30.00 seconds you came. Or you could extend this out farther, count 120, so you go all the way to 60 seconds and even farther out. And this will sort of tell you your general tendency. Are you rushing? Are you dragging? Are you right on time? So the goal is always to get as close to 00 after the second mark as you possibly can. A continuation of this process of upbeat playing is practicing with the metronome set on upbeats rather than downbeats. And you probably had your students practice this, but you should practice it too. So for instance, if I were going to perform the second movement of the whole first suite in E flat, the intermezzo, I could do something like sing that movement with the metronome set on upbeats. Forgive my singing, but you get the idea. Even take a piece in 6/8 and do the same thing with the metronome on the third eighth note of the beat. Another important skill is to be able to conduct and execute different polyrhythms against that meter. So for instance, if we're conducting in 3 and we play 2 or snap 2, 1, ready, and. Or if we're conducting in 2, snapping quarter note triplets, 3 against 2, 1, and. Three against 4, so we're conducting 3 pattern and snapping 4, 1, ready, and. If we're conducting in 4, snapping 3, 1, 2, ready, and. Another fun one is the fourth movement of the Pines of Rome, Respighi, and this one is in 4, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1.